then go for it.
We start with the open, right?
Correct.
Look.
You got it. Okay. All right. Here we go.
I'll make a clean start post-production.
And this doesn't look right. Oh, hey. Hello. I am
there.
Mike, and I'm here with Delaney. And this is the Do It Live podcast, where we're going to do all kinds of things, live, where we review the past week in autonomy and what's been happening with students, what's been happening with lectures. And I try to do something different today by bringing another student in and have that dynamic of a co-host, and we'll see how it works. And so what I was hoping to do is to start with a review of last week's Q&A, because that was the first thing that happened after the last Do It Live. And while I cue that up, Delaney, did you catch it? And what did you think about it?
I watched a little bit of last week's Do It Live, and it's, really interesting. So when Michael invited me to come into town to participate today, it was a no-brainer. Of course I did. And I'm here to do it live.
Okay, well, let's take a clip from last week's Q&A. This is after a student had asked Richard a question about a problem that she's having, and this was his answer.
It's basically like John's building the highway and you want to build the access road that connects to the highway from your town, right? So for dog breeders to be able to transact without that entropy, you want to introduce crypto into the situation, which is an astute observation. There is a problem there to be solved. You could try to solve it with contracts and lawyers, or you could have contracts in Ethereum, right? You could have, so there's ways to do what you want to do. And as far as your lead magnet, I would start with like the myths, like why people aren't using crypto, and like demystifying. So if you break down the myths and you demystify the process, that lead magnet would allow you to build a list. From that list, you can make your offer, and that might go semi-well, right? Depending on how quickly you can tune into your market. But from this same amount of work that you're building for yourself, now you take it and connect it into John's. Because if you take your email list of people that are interested in that and you say, John actually has a whole course, it's a couple $100. It's not like the low ticket item, right? You could provide tripwire, lead magnet, tripwire, low ticket item. He could have a mid to high ticket item. You could have an affiliate link for his course. And then you could qualify people through your, so you might be working with a couple dog breeders and setting up a wallet. These things are great, but they might want to know, okay, so now I have money in crypto. How do I invest it? Is there a marketplace where I can trade and buy and sell? That's what John's course will kind of address. And then
Okay, so did anybody catch that Q&A? Does anybody remember that moment? Does anybody want to make a comment?
I could start by making a comment. He's going over, some finer points of, how to generate a lead magnet. And it just seems like that's, important things to understand. That was my main takeaway from that clip right there. There's a lot of folks in the room. What did anyone else have to say about that? Jonathan wants to hop in. Let's do it. Live, that is.
Doing it live. Thanks very much, Delaney. Great to see you, gentlemen, both of you. One thing that I took away from the Q&A last week was how quickly everybody's progressing on their personal plans. Lots of people there asking questions. We're wanting to sprint and feeling the love already of autonomy to really push us to that next stage. The other thing that I took away from the Q&A was the interaction of people already. We've got students linking up with each other to make these plans really concrete rather than just keeping them as pipe dreams. So it was, although I didn't speak much at the Q&A, I thought it was really positive. And, I thought to myself, the takeaway was actually, I've got to get my backside in gear and start making more of these plans myself.
Jonathan, would you say that the pump is primed and we now have a siphon going? And, when you see the participation, it's taken on a life of its own. That's been my experience with a lot of the participation that I've engaged in, with the autonomy community.
Yeah,
Does
I think
anyone
it's
else feel that way?
quite interesting, the pressure that I think many of us have that was bottled up is probably dissipating. We've really taken it on board to develop the low pressure ideal to let more stuff come into us. So yeah, great point.
Excellent point.
Anyone else? Well, while I wait in case there's anybody else, another thing I wanted to point out is that after Richard gave his response to the question, there were other students who came in who were giving ideas on how to solve the problem. And it was really nice to see that it's just not Richard answering the questions in the Q&A, but you have other students collaborating and helping each other in a way that seems to be more, at least during that interaction, than I've seen in the past. And to me, that shows growth in the program. If there's no other questions on that, we can go over the Friday night lecture, last night's lecture. I have a clip from that, and if anybody stayed up to watch it, or if anybody has seen the replay, you can comment on this clip, or you can comment on really any part of the lecture.
And they made the Firestone company look like they did no wrong, right? So in these cases, the most highly paid people who use words are people who use words that do not reflect reality. Unfortunately, that's how the world works. It could be lawyers, it could be strategic communications firms, it could be K Street lobbyists, could be politicians. It's the absence of integrity. Unfortunately, they pay a lot for those type of things. What are they paying? They're paying dollars that are worth really nothing because they're printed out of thin air. So it's like a trick system out there. People are being tricked into doing the worst for things that don't exist. Let's not be those people. Let's actually transact value for value, right? We stay away from those things. Whatever tool we use to transact that energy, no big deal, because we're transacting value for value. No big deal. Business is communication. Before words, because business is communication, before words, violence and theft were the standard means for value transfer. Think about it. Primitive times, people don't have words, or maybe they have words, but they don't understand each other. What's the primary mode of value transfer? It's going to be plunder. A lot of
So that was just a snippet from last night, but really anybody can comment on any aspect of the lecture, anything they found interesting. I thought, I want to hear what other people have to say first. We have a lot of people in here.
Yeah, and I'll jump in real quick on that one. It's really interesting the way Richard points out about how it was in the old days. Theft and violence was like the mode of value transfer, and juxtaposing that against how we do things nowadays. If we're not going to communicate with integrity to exchange value, it naturally is going to devolve into violence, because what else do we have left? So making that point, I think, is really important, especially as we get into the later lectures, which are going to deal a lot more with sales.
In the olden days, not quite so old, we're only really about 500 years ago. And that was, you also had the leaders instituting slavery by the same means. They didn't enslave people with their own thoughts. They enslaved them by violence and threats of violence.
On that note,
Yeah,
the slavery and prisoner distinction that the one man giving the I think it was some sort of entrepreneur course, Clyde, I think was his name. I was really struck by that, and been thinking a lot about that all day, especially because I'm planning on, I have a good friend who's been interested in the course or what I've been doing, and so I've been thinking about that bit of his discussion, and what an amazing presentation that was. And I made a connection between that and the I think it's Larkin Rose's the Jones Plantation, that little parable that he gives. So that was one of the most profound and meaningful takeaways I took from the lecture last night.
Anyone else? We can't have too many wallflowers. This is last night's lecture. Had quality stuff.
Hey. Hello. Am I on?
You're on. Let's
You
go.
are on. Let's do it live.
Yeah, that's ended up, I keep learning more and more about how security plays such a huge part in our world. And somebody once told me that you'll know that you're successful when other people start trying to sue you, or start trying to steal what you have. And so there are increasingly sophisticated ways that we can use to start to protect ourselves from that and stuff. And now I'm orienting myself right now in a way to protect myself from the government by lawyering up and teaming up. I've got a meeting with Rhonda Kennedy on Monday, and we're going to look at how we can file suit against some of the testing companies and the state and all these things that it never really occurred to me when I opened a yoga studio, that this is what I'm going to spend my life doing, and fighting off people who are stealing my 20,000 members on an email list and, stuff like this. It's unbelievable to see, how primitive things keep coming back to, you can't pile up a pile of grain that's so high before people will start take it. I started calling it in the early days, the law of abundance. If you have 2 lollipops sitting on a table, 1,000 people will walk by and they won't take them. But if there's a pile of 100, people will immediately assume that there's more than enough to take there and start taking it. It's an amazing switch that the human mind can just justify taking something, it's something that bears looking into and factoring into any of our business transactions and ideas of this perception of abundance. And now I see that sociologically that's being foisted on us in an entitlement scheme, much like the Bolshevik revolution, and how that's manifesting. So we're dealing with a lot of these pieces right now.
And last night, Richard had a really good progression that he went through. He talked about frustration leads to, I think it's violence or anger or some kind of public manifestation of dissatisfaction. And then the choices that they give you are prison or a pill, right? And so it seems that you have to nip it in the bud at the frustration level, or at least somewhere between frustration and public violence or action.
I found that one of the biggest things that he talks about later, and kindness and in PR and all these kinds of things, is a huge factor. And I had one of the worst setbacks that I ever did when I finally found somebody who could take my job over after 7 failed general managers trying to take some time so I could pursue other things and not completely run the studio myself. She was amazing, but she was a German Swiss and sort of ruled with an iron fist, and it was not the same way that I dealt with. And really, kindness, I cannot say how important that is in dealing with issues that arise and holding people in when there is conflict instead of pushing them away. And it's such a huge lesson that I've learned there about managing relationships and business just being a relationship.
I agree with that. You got to learn to be kind to one another, especially if you're working through things, trying to do business, doing things that are complicated, or you run into issues. You're not the only one dealing with those issues. The other person that you're working with is dealing with those issues too. And, an ounce of kindness can go a real long way to eliminate some of the tension, that goes along with trying to get things done. and you run into issues or unscheduled meetings. So, that's a really good point.
And,
you got to learn how to be kind in a tense situation.
And I imagine we'll get to this at some point, but letting people go, or ending relationships with people that are obviously not going to, that are not serving either person's business investments and the relationships that start to expand. The best piece of advice I ever got, and it ends up really working, is if you have to let somebody go, throw them a party, celebrate their time there, and really sort of narrate, sort of create an idea of the way this is, instead of a shaming thing. Our society is so sensitive to these issues right now, and I think especially the younger generations are so guarded against doing anything wrong, that if we can contextualize it as a win and a moving forward kind of thing, that has been really a powerful tool. And when I let that slide, we ran into some real problems of just letting people go without really sort of contextualizing it in a benevolent.
That's a good insight. That's a very good insight. When you agree.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you could spend the whole day on it. Those lectures are so packed with information that it really is a survey that Richard's covering. And I think that's one of the reasons why with autonomy, when you have lifetime access, you can go back and watch these lectures and again and again and still get new information out of it. I don't have a clip, but I know that Richard also talked about digital assets. I don't know if anybody got anything out of that or had a comment on that.
I'll step up for the digital assets as somebody who doesn't know what they're actually wanting to do, but it was something that I was thinking about even with my own time with the consultancy firm that I'm with, and being able to start to use that digital asset as something that is going to invent my own pipeline as that attraction. So whether I give it away as free as a value add for luring somebody in a little bit later, that digital asset now, knowing that it's going to be actually worth something longer term, and it should also be priced up rather than just a valueless giveaway. This is something that we should be able to have that's going to add value to people's lives. So the fact that it's taken the attitude of we're here to help others, but as well, we want to provide something that keeps us with a little bit of long-term income, how much ever it's going to be, I thought was a great idea. And especially drawing in that link between the digital asset and getting all of those rejections of the previous week that we've got to get out and get the no's, so that we can then find actually those customers, the clients that truly want us to help them with their problems.
Yeah, knowing your value is a really important thing. I learned the hard way yesterday. I had a long, hard conversation about trying to, know your value, and that's an issue that I'm dealing with personally. And when it comes to digital assets, it's real easy to give a lot of it away, especially, with YouTube and how easy it is to get information up there. But, if you invest time into something and you think you're delivering value, at a certain point, you're going to have to ask for a return on that, I think. Is that kind of what that's getting into?
Yeah. Yes. But the question I want to ask about digital assets and is always a concern that I've had is the fact that people can copy them, they could redistribute them. I've been in groups of people who like to share books, who like to share videos that you can get for free. And so there is, I think sometimes, I don't really know, a concern that either the digital asset can be censored or it can be stolen in a sense. I don't know if anybody's ever thought about some of the downsides to that versus a physical product. Of course, the upside is in a time of COVID, you don't have to worry about shipping delays or people wearing a mask to get it. I don't know if anybody's considered the ups and downs of digital assets.
Well, I created a a digital asset, a course that I created for and put it on Udemy. And I've had several offers from organizations or companies in different, like one in China and one that I think was out of India, and then another that was serving various other schools. And one of the conflicts that I ran into is, so there was a contract that I signed, but how do I follow through with that? And if I find that there's impropriety, what's the likelihood of just the practicality of using any kind of legal recourse when the vendor is in India and I'm in Turkey. So some of those nuts and bolts things about the copyright issue is it's challenging, because I'm also someone that I use digital assets that I found on the internet. And so I did there's one artist who's pretty well known named Aaron Blaise, he's a Disney artist. And I think I came across someone who was asking about them, and he just kind of shrugged his shoulders. I think the way that I sensed that he went about is that he just built that feature into the cost of doing business. I mean, I don't know if that's the best way around it, but it's essentially, I think that he was so successful at what he was doing that, it didn't seem like it was a deal breaker for him. So.
Yeah. So I think if people find a lot of good value in it, it'll be worth it for them to obviously reimburse you for that. And secondly, I think there's a beauty to doing things like this, doing it live, because Richard does it a lot too. There's something to be said about that live aspect of things. So when you create a digital asset, that's something to think about too, right? The personal interaction and the actual being there for all the live interactions between whatever, all the people or what you're doing in your course. And that's something that can protect you against it being copied, because nobody can get that experience unless, they do it the right way. So I don't know.
Well, I think you guys are also touching on something that could be a positive, especially maybe early on, that if people are out there sharing your stuff, that could, in a sense, is a good thing. It shows that it's shareable, and it could act almost as a marketing tool to put you on people's radar, so that if, like you said, they want to pay them for what they got because they saw the value in it, or at least they know, well, the next time they put something out, I don't want to have to wait to get it off of the Pirate Bay or somewhere. I'll go ahead and sign up for the class. And so I think that is a good point.
It's a signal.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts on this or the lecture at all from last night? Okay, seeing none, we are going to pivot now and move to some of the student presentations that we had this week. I caught 3 of them, so those are the 3 that I'm going to highlight today. But if at any point people want to comment on others that happened during the week, then this is exactly the time to do that. The first one I want to talk about is Justin's Regenerative Agency Part 2 lecture that he gave. I thought it was very, very interesting, and I have a clip now that will play to give you a sample.
Microorganisms are a set of solutions. And notice here that I'm not just pointing at the one product that I'm offering. Here are a few different systems of culturing and expanding microorganisms. So there is the bokashi up at top. We can use that to ferment organic matter. We can use that to heal waterways. We can use that to divert all of the food waste away from the landfills. And we have a replacement for the chemical fertilizers.
All right, I'm going to stop there because that was exactly where I had meant to end the clip. Let me see here. And so, oops, screwed that up. That was where we're supposed to end. But I know there's people here who caught it. and they can speak for the lecture. And so let's go in here. Go ahead and hear from them.
Yeah, mushrooms are super duper interesting, especially when you get down into, the sort of like mycelium lattice that, fills the spaces in between the soil molecules and how it fixes nitrogen and other sort of minerals into the soil. A lot of people say that the largest living organism is, the mycelium in the soil. So that's just a really super interesting thing to take a look at. And Justin, I think, is doing a great job shedding light on that, because if you're going to try and grow food, he makes a pretty excellent case that if you don't understand the fungus and the mycelium and how to get soil to be productive, you're going to have a hard time producing food.
Who else caught the presentation?
Yeah, I love that course. I know I talked about it last time, but I just really appreciate what he's doing. I mean, there's so many things, and I talked about this at the end with him, but there's so many things that tie into our food. It ties into health. It ties into sustainability. It ties into so many things that could be fixed by getting to like the root of the problem and fixing that base structure there. So farming in this country is not sustainable. It's not, we don't produce good food. We have a lot of health issues because of it. And he's just done a ton of research to point that out and to actually offer solutions, which I think is always a great thing. I mean, that's the great thing about all you guys in autonomy anyway, is it's solutions, right? We're not just talking about the issues going on. He's actually giving you ways to solve it, and solve it on an individual level too, right? So that you don't have to be dependent on some big corporation to solve it for you. So yeah, that's my take.
Well, Amanda, I just want to follow up though, because I really did screw up the clip. What I was going to highlight was an overview of the history that he'd gone through, which was a big portion of the presentation. And I was going to end it before he gave the solution. Instead, I cut all that out and again, went straight to the solution. What did you think of
live?
Yeah, we're doing it live. What did you think of the history that he went into? He really dug deep on that and had all these connections that he made. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you where these people have taken it. And like I said, that the entire history of industrialized agriculture and how we got to where we are has affected so many things. And so I mean, he put a lot of time and effort into that, and I highly recommend that everybody listen to it. But there's been a long line of things that have got us to where we are, right? So, and it doesn't look like there's going to be any good solutions from their end. So, I mean, I really think it's something that people should start taking part in on their own levels. I think that's the only way we fix it. So.
Yeah, with that kind of feedback, I'm definitely adding it to my list. That sounds very interesting.
The presentation, no, you got to
Yep.
watch them both, and you can even watch them out of order because of the way he went through the history in the second part. Before we move on from this one, food's a big issue. I don't know if there's anybody else who, whether or not you caught the presentation, some of this resonates with you and you want to comment on that, or does nobody care about food?
Are you
I'm
kidding?
back.
About food. No, I heard somebody else.
Lab-grown meat.
Yeah, I heard somebody else come off the mic, so y'all go ahead.
No, you go first. You're going right now, and then they'll go.
All righty. Hey, Pam Batchelder here, season 1 autonomizer. Food, so very important. Community, so very important. Those two things are very linked. And I think that a lot of us don't understand, just similar to the entire thing about each little thing ties onto something else. And, you know, as the plant community and the soil food web, that's all interconnected. So are we. And if we are not knowing who our farmers are, how we can get our food locally, how we can even grow some of it ourselves, then we're not safe. And, you know, we're not free. So I think it's very, very important. That's one of the things that is an asset that we should all have in our lives is either growing it ourselves, working as a community, and really we can all help heal the land.
Yeah, it takes a village.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Am I on now? I have this little thing with the bokashi set up here, and then I have my drain that comes off of my reverse osmosis water, and then every now and then I just take and fill this up and create this great tea that I can then pour off and create all these other and water all my plants, and we have citrus and everything here. So I don't know. I just happened to be doing this at the time, so I thought I'd share. There's my bokashi and compost just from my scraps from my kitchen.
You're making it happen, pal. That looks awesome. Where are you from?
Yeah.
I'm up in Los Angeles, but I found this crazy house on the top of a hill out in the middle of sort of what used to be East LA, scary gang area. Now it's kind of different.
Outstanding. Outstanding.
Yeah.
I was
I
going to
just want-
say,
Oh, go ahead.
which?
Adrian.
Go ahead, Adrian.
Adrian, why don't you jump in there, pal? It sounds like you had something you want to say.
Yeah, the same thing that we talk about digital investment and investing in the things that are important to us. We have to change the mindset, our own and a lot of others, to see food as an investment, because doing it without GMO, doing it without monoculture does cost an investment, at least now, of those fake dollars that they're paying anyway. But you do need to look upon that as an investment part of your budget, rather than what can I get for the cheapest price that will go into my gut.
You're saying you can't eat NFTs?
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
What are NFTs?
I don't know what NFTs are either. This guy over here is just beaking
yeah,
him.
I would say-
Never mind him. He's only hosting the show.
You have to watch last night's lecture.
Adrian, I got a question
real
for
organic
you.
produce.
It is food security a subject that you get into with your flock when you're, having these type of conversations?
When I have individual conversations, yes, because there is no way to deal with 200 people from all walks and ways of life that will be on the same
Everybody's got to
page.
eat, though.
Right, they do, but you understand where people come from. I have people that are working in that industry right now who are trying to move out of that agronomy model, and it takes a lot. You have to invest in those people. Those people are interested in feeding their families as well. So that's what I look at as an investment, not as and try to share that with people as much as I can.
Awesome. TJ, did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, yeah. One, I'll agree with Adrian, it is an investment, because we always talk about like how time is a currency, right? So, I mean, food is a currency. So, I mean, the more you invest in food, I mean, that's real currency instead of fake paper fiat, right? So, it's a huge investment. And I'll also just say that, like, we bought our property and we still haven't even really delved deep into it. So one of the huge, awesome things about autonomy is, like, we have more resources, like, when we start like pursuing that, than I could ever have imagined. I mean, we got Jeffrey, that's a regenerative agriculture. We got Danny Lilly, that's aquaponics. We got Justin, that's doing a regenerative agency. So, I mean, it's really, really incredible to have all these resources. And that's all I wanted to add. And I also wanted to agree with Adrian about an investment, because I think we need to start looking at what real currencies are. What's that?
I said, you're talking about the synergy. I know in the corporate world, every manager worth his salt scours for opportunities to use the term synergy, and what you're describing with the community and all the feedback you get and all the information you're given, it's, there's a synergetic relationship that's developing here, and it's, leading to, everybody coming up with ideas and implementing, things in their own lives and with each other.
For sure. You must have threw that out there based off our conversation.
I don't know what you're talking about, TJ. That was organic to stay on topic.
Beautiful, Ben.
I wanted
Hey,
to
Danny, I
add
see your
something real
video's
quick.
on. There you go.
Yes.
Let's
Yep.
go.
I'll give you kind of an update that's happened in the last week. There was this meeting that was called in New Mexico, government entities, think tanks, community leaders, they're trying to address the problem of food security in New Mexico. Well, for many of you that I've had a dialogue with, New Mexico's dead last in food security. We produce only about 3% of our own food supply. So that means the other 97% is imported. The government knows this. The think tanks know this. And so I didn't go into yesterday's meeting expecting a whole lot, and not a whole lot did come out of that. Is one of the things that was brought up was, hey, I do aquaponics. I could use a little bit of help, namely in the real estate side of it. The government hangs on to all this land and assets that they can't seem to get in the hands of the right people. And what was brought up was something called an anti-donation clause, which a lot of city governments and entities seem to, now they're bringing it up. So they're set up this other roadblock to say, well, we know what the problem is, but we don't want to address it by giving these nonprofits the opportunity to create something of value and utility for the community. So they'd rather just let it sit. So I know they're trying to come up with some legislation to fix that, but how long is that going to take? And so there's people that know what's going on, and that's why I've always pushed for more of the grassroots method, because from the top down, it's not going to get fixed. And
Yeah,
I was
I
just
think a big
painfully
story
reminded of
with,
that yesterday.
Who's that just jumped in? I don't want to know.
No, it was Annie. Yeah, so exactly. You don't want to trust on legislation to solve the problem. They're just going to create more problems. I fully agree. Grassroots is and educating people on the ground is the way to go. Well, I mean, unless anybody else wanted to chime in, we can go on to the second presentation that I saw, and that was nobody. Okay, that was Tony's presentation on the Artist's Way, and I think there are two people. One of them is Tony, who are here who can comment on this. So it'd be great to hear those who are in attendance. But I have a clip that we can watch, and just to get a taste of the presentation.
Let it roll.
Yeah, let it roll.
Now, the main activities of the Artist's Way, there's two of them. So we talked about the morning pages. So these are essentially a daily habit. First thing, waking up and just stream of consciousness, right? And of course, it's what you write about is completely up to you. So, and this is this page here is part of one of my journals, one of my sketchbooks. So I was, I think I was waking up on the plane to Guatemala, flying into Guatemala City to spend 3 weeks studying Spanish in Antigua. So someone who was sleeping on the plane, and I think the person next to me.
So what's great about this presentation is that Tony's a season 5 student, and he's already getting out there and giving these presentations and sharing with the community his knowledge and really interesting stuff. I did morning pages for a while. I always thought them fascinating. I hadn't read the book though, so I got a lot out of the presentation. Anyone else? I think there's one person, I see him here, who was there who could talk about the presentation. Maybe he doesn't hear me. Oh, I saw Tony in here earlier. I don't know if he's still here. Did you want to?
I was waiting for. Of course, I could talk about it. If there was anyone else.
Of course, you can. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I was excited for the opportunity. I knew it was something that I could talk about and share. For me, the book was really instrumental in kind of reclaiming being an artist after having it schooled out of me, essentially. So I think all of us have had the experience of when we're young, you know, in kindergarten and so forth, we think of ourselves as artists and creatives, or like any of us, if you sat down with a child of 4 or 5 and asked them to draw something, they'll say, sure. And then essentially school kind of essentially runs that out of us. And so when I was in my early 20s, that I came across that book, and it really got me back into doing art and having it be a part of my life. And so, and one of the great takeaways for me of it is we have this idea that you need some sort of specialist training in order to be an artist or a musician. And I think this has also come out in what Richard was sharing about the first 20 hours. Essentially, it's just basically about putting those things which used to be that people did those regularly, right? Before there were forms of entertainment for us to consume, we created our own entertainment. We created our own art. And so in this sense of autonomy, I think that being a creative person is our birthright and is something that we should all reclaim, just not only for the pleasure that it gives to create things, but also for the way that it hones your senses and makes you more appreciative of the world around you. Those are another thing that I shared in that presentation, is that in the list of points that John Taylor Gatto shares about the elite education at boarding schools, he makes 2 points specifically about the arts. And so I really recommend that book for anyone. It's very accessible and it's really fun to go through the process. It's not at all about an elitist sense of the artist, but any kind of creative musician, poet, writer, art as a general approach to life, essentially. So
yeah, that's a really interesting point. And you're referring to the list of things that Gatto lists off that the elite teach their children. And I think one of the things you're referring to is how to draw things in the world accurately. Is that one of them, Tony?
yeah, it's essentially, I mean, if you study something long enough to look at it, you'll start to really see what it looks like. And that when you start to approach the world around you with that sort of eye, things will become, they jump out at you. You develop what you sense the artist's eye. It's essentially just being more aware of your surroundings and noticing the wonder of the world that we live in.
Yeah, and I can totally relate to what you said there about how doing art as a child is sort of beaten out of you. I can remember when I was a kid, I used to love drawing. I used to love coloring. I was a big fan of Ninja Turtles as a child of the 90s, and I used to love just trying to draw pictures of Shredder. My name's Michael, so naturally my Ninja Turtle was Michelangelo. Right. And I've never thought about it until you just said that. Yeah. That's,
Mike, there's another
else that I'm gonna have to think about.
Yeah, there's another dynamic that is in play too that I learned from an architect that I used to be. I went to architecture school and I worked in a firm for a little while in an earlier part of my career. And the guy that I was he was my mentor, would doodle all the time when he was on the phone. And what he would describe to me is that it's an iterative process whereby you might have an idea in your head and you think it's a solid idea, but it changes with time. And it isn't until it comes out the end of your hand, at the end of your pencil, that it almost becomes independent of you. And then when you can look at it on the page, separate from your mind, separate from your body, then you can react to it. It becomes an iterative process. And Tony, I wonder if you have any similar experience to the act of producing art is iterative, and it helps, it's a conversation with yourself in a way. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, certainly, exactly. And just in terms of the notion of meditating, and you're essentially also unlocking a different perspective, a different approach. Generating a visual language. I mean, as we we look at the things that are produced for us to understand them. It's the old cliche: a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so, it takes very little skill to actually doodle and find ways to express what you are thinking about or even feeling about. I mean, for example, the ideas of art as expression used in therapeutic settings, art therapy. It's just a whole huge, like I said, it's part of our birthright as human beings, is as creative beings.
And it connects you to that part, that creative part. I think Richard even talks about you're sort of you're the part of you that's connected to source when you're creating.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I don't know if there's any more commentary on that. We do have one more.
Yeah.
Student, yes, go, please.
I wanted to say one more thing. I homeschool my daughter, and I don't know if it was something I saw on Autonomy, but I get reminded throughout my life the importance of, and once again, thank you for this of the importance of sketching all the time. And it was in something in the context of creating more confidence, and how important that is, since we're talking about business relationships. But when you get up and you do something consistently, whether it's your guitar scales or your journaling, sketching, that it creates this confidence. And that's a gift I really want to give to my daughter, that I've really drawn from in my life. And thanks for that reminder to do that again. That was it.
Excellent. Excellent.
The opposite of provisional self-esteem. You're sort of building your own self-esteem by establishing what you think and creating with that.
What a gift. And it really sort of offsets a lot of this, like painting a bad picture of too much structure and everything like that, when really you have to embrace it and just bring it inward. And I think a lot of people forget that step. When I see a lot of people getting out of public schools and going into homeschools and stuff, and they're becoming permissive parents, and then their kids are going crazy, and they're experiencing all these other problems from the other side of the spectrum. So this is a great tool, and I'm going to set reminders to hit this again. Thanks.
One of the best pieces of homeschool advice that I ever got from a very seasoned homeschooler who had 3 kids as well, but older than mine, was to give yourselves, all of you, the parent as well as the kids, a year to decompress if you're leaving a public school setting. Don't try to, craft an agenda, craft a curriculum right out of the gate. Allow kids to sort of untease themselves from the mindset, and then, before you start, if you have that space and if you can do it, but to sort of get a new baseline, if you will, before you kind of launch your homeschool career. But it worked well for us.
Oh, we're back on. How'd that happen? Excellent. Well, we do have one more student, former student, ongoing student, awesome person to highlight. This is time for the obligatory reviewing the wealthbattle.com presentations. Those are always excellent, high quality. Autonomy students can get access to them, but of course, it's only $20 at wealthbattle.com, and you can get access to a lot of other great things. And so let's watch. This is a short clip from last Wednesday, but it's my favorite clip. So.
Lisa's going to take us all to school.
It's my favorite clip. Here we go.
Oftentimes, these can be funded in different ways, but oftentimes the suggestion is to fund them with life insurance on each partner's life to ensure that the bio is properly funded in the event that something happens. This is a totally accurate buy, sell, 3-panel by Kaysen. So study it well. Partner dies, money goes.
He really took that lesson from Gatto to heart about how to accurately draw things. You know, that's art of the highest level.
You guys should make the presentations with us. It is an art process. It's kind of insanity.
Partner dies, money goes. That sounds like a tagline.
His impromptu drawings are the best parts of the cash flow sometimes.
But what's wrong with it? Nothing. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Loud and clear, the message.
Anybody want to comment on Wealthbattle? You better, because Lisa's here listening. I'm just going to wait.
Somebody
oh
yay.
That we should all support one another in our different ventures. I mean, I know we can't do all of it for everyone, otherwise that would take up all of our bandwidth. However, even if you subscribe just for a little bit, think about it, because it's nice to support someone who's giving so much to our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I always have like amazing things to say about Lisa, but unfortunately it was my birthday and I was out exploring the world, so I missed this week's. But from everything that I've learned so far from her, like, it's really opened my eyes to a whole ton of stuff that I did not have any prior knowledge to, which is kind of crazy because I'm in the corporate world most of the time. So yeah, good stuff. I love it.
I can second that.
Yeah. Wealthbattle.com, wealthbattle.com. Anyone else catch it? Maybe you did. But you know what Lisa's about. She's amazing. Her products are amazing. Her advice is amazing. She gives so much to the community. You really need to check it out if you don't watch it. And if you can't watch it live, then try to find a way to watch it on replay, wealthbattle.com.
But we're about doing it live here.
That's right. That's right.
So, which one we want you to do.
And I know we're going a little long, but we got one more to go. This is my favorite subject. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted Delaney here, because I have done a ton of interviews with students in autonomy. And I think it's it's the secret sauce. It is one of the best parts of autonomy, where we get to talk to each other for an hour, usually on each side, if you're going to do it right. And get to know them and bounce ideas off them. And it really creates a sense of community that I haven't even seen in churches or other places where people come together under the same ideal, but don't really get to know each other. And so I know that we've talked about these interviews before, but they were an assignment again this week. And so I just wanted to ask you, Delaney, you've done a lot of interviews as well, and you started late. How have you felt about these?
Well, for starters, you better watch out, Larry King. He's getting a little long in the tooth, and Mikey Morales over here is going to take over that position, because his ability to interview is probably the best of anyone I've interviewed. No offense, all the conversation has been excellent, but he has some pretty biting questions. But on the topic,
I didn't mean it that way, by the way. I'm sorry I said that.
Oh, whatever, man. I wanted to hit the ground running, and I have a lot of spare time. So I thought the best way to do that is interview as many people as possible. And I haven't spoken to a single person who didn't have something interesting to say. Everybody's been nice. Everybody's had excellent manners except me. So yeah, the process of interviewing all these people has been just so fulfilling. And I don't mean that in like a namaste crystal sort of way. Like, it is legitimately fulfilling. My brother asked me the other day how I was doing, and without even skipping a beat, I said, never better. And for once, it was authentic. It was really, it's been really nice talking to all these folks.
Well, and the thing is that you know, I've had interviews that have gone well over an hour, and but then I've had some that were very short. In fact, I had one that was under 30 seconds, and I did record it. I have a clip. Let's just watch that real quick. It's short. It's 30 seconds, and you'll see how you can have a concise interview and still get to a fundamental truth. Let's just pull this up here. Hello. Please state your name.
Dallas Morales.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Ice cream.
Uh,
Are they easy?
Are they easy? Do you want easy questions?
Yes.
Okay, well, here's an easy one. How great is your father?
So great.
Well, that was really choppy on my end. I don't know if you saw it, but the point is,
That's amazing.
It doesn't take a lot of, it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot of talk to just get to the fundamental truth. And sometimes it's just one easy question, and you get what you need to know. Anybody else want to talk about interviews?
Does anybody have any disagreements with his interview subject?
I mean, really, how great is it? So great.
I'm kind of curious what people get out of listening to other people's interviews, because a lot of people will come in and listen. What's that experience like?
That's a great question. Please, somebody chime in.
Come on, you wallflowers out there. Where's Nick Hayes? He likes to sit down on a lot of interviews.
Well, I've gotten a lot more interviews just from sticking in. So I'll have an interview or whatever, and then somebody else is listening, and then I might start talking to that guy. I think I did that with Ryan today. So that was the awesome part about it, was all of a sudden you're talking to other people. I could just talk all day. But I'll let somebody else talk.
I mean, he makes a good point because, you know, towards the end of the interviews, it kind of opens up. And when I see people sitting in on the interviews I'm doing, I try to make a point of, hey, you know, you've been sitting in for a little while. What do you have to say? You know, you get any input, feedback, something you like to say about something that I wanted to say?
I guess that's one thing I wondered about was, I kind of feel like I'm disturbing if I want to say something. What do you guys think as far as, do you feel like you're disturbing, or do you feel like you're giving something to the conversation?
Well, it's part of the process, at least the template. I think generally it's a good idea to wait till the end to give feedback so that the interviews can keep their rhythm and make the progress, especially if the interviewer has a line of questioning they're trying to go down. But I think it's really important for both the interviewer and interviewee to hear a third perspective. And, you know, they've got the option to keep it private. And if they choose to go into a dojo, I think the assumption is that people can come in and listen. And if one is willing to do that and still be vulnerable and honest with themselves, then they might get, not only will they get additional perspectives, but it's still a way to get to know people in the community. Actually, it's a fast way because, you know, I was in an interview, I think there were at least 10, 11 people the other day. And, you know, by them sitting on that one interview, all 10 of them got to know a little bit more about the person that was being interviewed. One to many.
Yeah, it turned into kind of like an impromptu podcast, just like Do It Live.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody else have any interview experiences?
I will say, as far as that goes, is like I've been with Amanda for 7 years at this point, and I haven't listened because I don't have a lot of time, but I've listened to a lot of other people's interviews. But there's like maybe 2 or 3 that I have listened in on hers, and like I've found out that I've learned stuff that I didn't even entirely know that perspective, even though I live with her and talk to her every single day. So that was kind of a mind-blowing experience. And yeah, so it opened up a lot of conversation between her and I, something I definitely did not expect to come out of listening in on a conversation of her with somebody else. I don't know, I guess maybe it's just the topics or whatever the case may be. And I don't bring up those specific topics or whatever, but like either way, nonetheless, I listened into it and like I was like, whoa, like, huh. And then like after they would like hang up, I'd be like, that's interesting. And then like it would start a whole new topic of conversation. So that was kind of a mind-blowing experience for me.
We should quiz TJ on his wife now. Like, what's her favorite color?
Purple. I got that one.
Atta boy. Anyone else out there who's sat in on some of these conversations?
I think the whole thing is interesting because I am usually more comfortable having a one-on-one conversation with somebody. So even though if there's 10 people in the room, I might have I'd be willing to have the same conversation with each of them individually. Having 8 people listening to a conversation with someone else is a different experience. So I think there's something to that. Like, I think getting comfortable with that's interesting because if I'm willing to share that information and I'm not going to change who I am or how I present myself, then I think it's a good experience. I also think what TJ said is huge because we don't, sometimes we don't explore certain areas, not for lack of care, or we just don't get there for whatever reason. And to be able to comfortably sit in on that conversation and on both sides, for both you and Amanda, I'm thinking that is an experience. And then to be able to talk about it later, I think that's really big.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. And just to circle back on what you said a moment ago about being the actual interviewer and interviewee and having a lot of people in the room listening, that's in itself a totally different dynamic as well, right? Because like I know like my very, very first interview was with Justin Olson, and it was like in the first week of interviews, and there was like 20 people in there, and like it was a good precursor to doing it live, because that, like Richard said, when like I did do it live, you could tell I was like really nervous, but it was uncomfortable. But like that's kind of like where the growth is, right? Because like you're experiencing things and emotions and etc. that you're not used to, right? So, and it also, like you said, also Lisa, is like when you can have that same conversation with everybody, but it's a good feeling to know that you can have that same conversation and then circle back and have a conversation individual with all the same people that were in the room, and like it gives yourself like personally and like introspective wise, like it gives you a sense of authenticity, right? Because like I don't know, it's hard to explain, I guess, but like it makes it like, yeah, like if you just put yourself out there like that, there's like you are more conscious to make sure you're like staying on point of like who you are and what you said, like in a group setting, because you don't want to like divert away from like your primary authenticity of who you are, right? So but yeah, it can be nerve-wracking in a group setting, but I think there's some real growth that happens there.
Well, it's different too. It's not an engaged group setting. It's an audience and a conversation. So I feel like it's different when you're interacting with someone because that person is more engaged with you. And so it's easier to be more vulnerable because it's like you're on the same team almost. But when people are watching, they're removed, right? They're removed from the situation to some degree. And so it's a different experience. It's like, it's easier to be judged. It's easier to listen to things and be like, oh man, I wouldn't say that, or I couldn't do that, or instead of actually being part of the conversation and digging in to help with growth.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you 100%.
The only alternative perspective I'll give on that is that, at least when I'm interviewing, it's a challenge for me to be listening and still hold and processing, remembering and thinking of what my next question could be, or what line of questioning I want to go down. And so what's nice for me as a listener is I don't have to do all that extra processing. I could just let the interviewer do the questions. Sometimes they don't ask the questions I want to ask, so I can get the information I want to hear, but it still makes it a little bit easier to sit and just listen along. Because if you're being questioned, you got to think about your answer. If you're asking the questions, you got to listen and think about the questions. But if you just show up to listen, you can hear the story and follow along with it. So that may be another way to look at it.
It just feels like then maybe if you do something that's cool, but otherwise it's like what, like flipping through Facebook and like learning all about somebody, but then not actually having the engagement.
Well, that's why I think the giving feedback at the end is really important for people. I think that's important. But again, it can be a one-to-many way where I have heard interviews of people I have not interviewed, and so I at least feel like I had a chance to get to know them a little bit better. But
So I think
see what
that's the case with people whose mentors or friends are podcasters because they haven't found them in the real world. So they listen to a whole lot of them. And so they hear one person talking at them all the time. And so they have a sense of knowing this person, even though on the other end, like the other person doesn't know you at all. It's kind of interesting.
That is really interesting. And I have heard Joe Rogan say on numerous occasions that he's had people walk up to him and be like, holy shit, it's Joe Rogan. Like, and he realizes that the person who's acting that way it is not cognizant of the fact that he knows a lot more about me, Joe Rogan, than I know about him, the audience member. And that
Joe Rogan, the host, not the person.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, but people don't make that distinction when they meet him in public. You know, they try to give him like a big hug and it's like, whoa, like, I don't know you, dude. Like, you know, so that is interesting.
Any other interview experiences? Has the fact that people have had to do them for 3 weeks in a row made any difference? I feel like personally, week 1 was great. Week 2 was getting my feet. You know, week 1 was new, getting my feet. But week 3, I got to do new, interesting things, and some of the best interviews came this week. I don't know if anybody else had a similar experience.
Well, for me, it just became more natural, right? Like it's easier to have that conversation. It's like because especially you go through the outline, you can actually kind of, like you were saying before, Mike, like where you have to like think about what the like what you're saying, and also like try to listen to what they're saying, but think about what you're going to do next. Is what's so great about the outline, because like as long as you have those primary questions in your brain, and like once you do it so many times, like it's really easy to like listen and then kind of retract back to like that question or whatever question that might be, like how did you come to find autonomy or something like that. I mean, like it's a lot easier to come back, because like for me in the beginning, it was really hard for me to focus on that outline and like stick to those questions. I just wanted to conversate. All right, that's like what I do. I'm sure a lot of you that interviewed with me know that. So like it's been a challenge for me to like stop and listen, but it's like the more I do it, a lot easier it is. And that outline of questions makes it a lot easier for me to keep a structure in my brain when I'm talking to people. So that's my feedback there.
Yeah, I mean, there's no agenda with these interviews. So it sounds like how to make friends and influence people comes to you naturally, since you just want to conversate. So that's probably a really good skill you have.
Yeah.
Most of the time, except when I struggle in the listening aspect, right? So I gotta stop. Yeah, I mean, I can talk a lot, but like that's one of the big things autonomy is, and I still got a lot of work to go, but like I'm cognizant of it now, and like it's still challenging to me, but like I'm at least cognizant of it. And actually, Delaney, you were on an interview with me earlier this week with Ben. Yeah, I mean, and like I kind of took over that conversation. And what was so cool about that, and hopefully Ben checks this out lately because he'll probably laugh at it. He'll be like, I know he Discorded me later, and he's like, hey, say I know you're working on listening, but I figure I got to call you out on this. You didn't really ask me anything about me. Yeah. And I was like, I was laughing. I was like, that's great. I was like, no, it's all good. I was like, I appreciate the constructive criticism. And I said, and I knew I did. I thought about it afterwards. And I said, I was kind of getting there, but
chops too.
You did bust my chops for sure.
Conversation.
Absolutely. You cut in right at the right time. But it was the only interview I had to where I did.
Black. Look at me. I can't even let you talk right now. I'm just chopping at the bit. I got to say something.
See, it's a constant struggle for me. But yeah, that's why we're in the dojo working it out, right? You know, I'll get there.
Intellectual kung fu, brosif.
Actually, I'd like to take TJ's point a little bit further. As we've progressed on with these interviews, it's not just that we're getting to know the form and the structure, finding about people, where they are now, where they've come from, and where they'd like to go. it's also a case of, as we've had our chance to explain our own story, we really get to practice the active listening. I've heard enough of my own voice and retelling very similar things to the number of people that had to put up with me interviewing. But as the interviewer, I now have the opportunity of finding out something much more new, something really interesting about these new friends and colleagues. So I've actually heard myself enough. I'm no longer chomping, as you said, Michael, at the bit to jump in and be able to say my 2 cents. I really want to test this person now and see if they draw out the learning points, the ways that they're going to be able to fix themselves. Maybe tap a tiller or something to fill the sails with a bit more wind if they're going on in the right direction, or to bring them back onto the course. It's been quite nice that I don't need to talk so much. So now I'm going to stop.
But Jonathan,
the
when
sound of
you've
his
heard
voice
your
now.
when you've heard your voice that much, do you change your story, or you're like, man, I'm tired of hearing myself say the same thing over and over again? Maybe that'll spur me to do some changes in my own life.
Very good point, Lisa. Well, I've fortunately, when it comes to my backstory, I've got a fair few different ones to be able to tell, and as and those people who have chatted to me, for me it is deciding about whereabouts I want to go next. As I've spoken to many of you, it's about improving myself at the moment was why I came into the course. And now I'm looking forward to embracing even more of those skills and looking as if the place I wanted to get to, is that enough? Can I do more? So it's going to be interesting.
Dana, I know that you were thinking about saying something. I don't know if you still have something to say.
You called
That
me
space
out.
background, that's excellent.
Oh, it's back in again. Okay, great. I didn't check what my background would be. But yeah, just like with the interview exercises, when I first came in, I always had this what I wanted to say next at the forefront of my mind. And as time went on, I was able to relax and actually just let the conversation go and let it go where it took me, and eventually been able to retrieve that question again, instead of, not really actively listening to what the interviewee. So yeah, over time, he had the reason for giving us those 3 weeks to get over those humps. And I did get tired of talking about myself. There were different avenues on bringing up or with the questions that came about, like a new story to be told, but still was authentic to myself. But yeah, it did get tiring, and the ability to be able to tell my story and do it faster so I could get more information from other people, like more other questions in. That was great. And then I also wanted to let you guys know, like, I really love your setup. The flow that's going between you and Mike, or Delaney and Mike, is great. And I actually, when I first got in, I thought, Mike, you had, I know you have kids, but I thought you put your son up to it to do the do it live because your haircut. So that's awesome.
Dana, how dare you?
That's me staying up late to watch the lecture all the way to 4 a.m. and then scramble to get it done live because everything went wrong right beforehand. And Delaney wasn't even coming until I called him this morning. This is a last minute thing, but thank you for the kind words on the youthful appearance.
Seriously, this production today was like a Russian doll of do it live, do it live, do it live, do it live. There's so many layers.
You guys got something going there, though, for sure. I want to see more of it. If you guys can hook up again and do something.
Yeah, who knows? Did anybody else have the experience? I'm not saying that Danny had this, but did anybody else change their story? Okay, I've given my story 5 times. I'm just giving a new story. Or I'm not giving that story anymore and I'm giving a different story.
I'm actually an astronaut. I just got back from my stint on the International Space Station, floating around.
Back in Nam.
I'm a star, man, like David Bowie. What do you got, Ryan? What's up, pal?
Oh, hey. Oh, I didn't know I was soloed here. No, it really occurs to me after listening to all this, and I'm fascinated with interviews, and I'd never really broken it down and tried to look at the distinctions of what the format offers and why it's so interesting to me, because I just jumped in and I was the first time today sitting in a dojo room listening to TJ and Brian interview, and I felt sort of creepy about it, but then like, when do I make that? It was like I was listening on the conversation. I felt like I was CIA or something. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, NSA,
but,
all day long.
You came in at the perfect time.
Yeah,
they get a job for you, Ryan.
Like, yeah. I'm totally. I'll do some PR for them. But anyway, it occurred to me that, like, what's different about this, and that people, I think, hold themselves to a higher standard of truth and accountability, because A, they know it's being recorded, and B, it's an expandable format where other people could be watching or hearing or whatever. So you get into refining your own story and sort of this own sort of discovery process that's connected to truth. And it's funny because I've been working in yoga studios and owning my own yoga studio for 20 years and 10 years respectively. In the conversations that people have there, everyone's so lofty and thinking that they're having such spiritual sort of epiphanies and interactions and stuff. And I just don't see much truth really being relayed there. It's just a lot of sort of new age mumbo jumbo. And this is why I'm really drawn to this community. And I just feel so satisfied and enriched from these things, because if truth should be part of any spiritual practice. And really that's what we're refining is a process of truth here. So it turns this into, like someone mentioned before, church, better than church. Well, I think it's because we're creating this expandable and enriched format in which to discover and expand on and elaborate, talk about these relationships with the truth. And so I find it a spiritual sort of thing because of that. That's it.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. So, as a teacher, one of the things that I've learned over the years is if you create a container where students feel safe, obviously it's going to enhance the learning so many times. And so, I can see that one of the brilliant elements of this program is this community building aspect. Where people, feel a connection, they feel supported, they feel respected. All these sort of human needs that are part of what encourage us to bring out the best in ourselves, and to helps also we've heard the word synergy and all that, and so to see it in action. And just at the the beginning of it, so the idea of where this can go over time is really exciting.
Who has never done anything like this before? The idea of doing these interviews with a stranger and having, it does sound a lot like group therapy. I shouldn't ask the question that way. It sounds somewhat like almost like a group therapy session, or maybe like I don't know, but I would imagine an AA meeting. But the idea that you're trying to be vulnerable, you're trying to be honest, and you have an audience, but that the audience isn't there, hopefully, just to spectate out of entertainment, but they're sympathizing. Sometimes they're in the same situation, and you don't know. Has anybody not had it? Want to comment on that aspect of it?
Might be easier to tell a stranger. I don't know. I didn't want to tell anybody about my breakup with my girlfriend, but I was like, what the hell? It's a big deal. So, but it might be easier to tell a stranger. I don't know.
Well, Brian, that's actually a great point. Has anybody felt that they've shared more with people during these interviews, or during at least one of the interviews, than they might have shared with some of their friends or family because of that, I don't know, that separateness, especially when.
Well, I don't know for sure, but there's a few people that there's a website that I liked that I told other people about that might have been going through a different similar situation yeah, it's very possible. I definitely think yes. I'll say yeah. Short answer. And
Well,
I
great.
can do
Well-
laundry and wash dishes while partaking in a podcast.
Well, we could be near the end. I don't know. This is our last topic. If anybody else wanted to comment on anything we talked about today, interviews, presentations, Q&A, lecture, this is the chance. Any last thoughts from anyone?
I just love that you got Delaney at your house and you guys are doing this together. It's like awesome. Like I didn't realize you guys live that close together, or maybe you don't. I don't know, but either way, it's pretty cool. I love it.
It's about an hour. How do you say it?
Something like that. You know, when he texted me this morning, I only had 2 words. The first word started with F, and the second word was yeah. Let's do this.
And then he said,
He's
it's only an
literally
hour.
in my bedroom.
It's crazy how Mike don't have an accent and Delaney does though. Like, and it's only an hour difference.
I'm from the Bay Area, dude.
Ah.
I'm not from here.
Yeah, and I'm half chainsaw.
All right. Well, I mean, if there's nobody else going once, going twice, I will say join next week. But first, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube so you never miss an episode. And if you want to know how to get autonomy, go to getautonomy.info and tell them Bill Gates sent you.
Read like Luca Brasi.
Yeah. It's a live read. And thanks everybody for joining. This was fun. We had a lot of technical hiccups, right? I spilled like 30%, 90% of this water on my Mac Mini and my.
It was awesome.
Yeah, right before we went. And so I appreciate people's patience and thank you so much. And I guess this is where they're gonna wrap it up in post. It's music and stuff. But we're all set. Thanks so much.
Uh-oh.